The press conference area, the players in the room directly behind you. We will open that up in about 10 or 15 minutes. It's Xavier Rhodes, LaMarcus Joyner, Bjorn Werner, Everett Dawkins, and Christian Jones. They will be Vince Williams instead of LaMarcus Joyner, I've just been told. So we will open up with Coach DJ Eliot, who has joined us up at the table. And Coach, you've now been here for a few days getting ready for the Discover Orange Bowl. How are preparations going for your team?
Preparations are going very well. The players are focused. Guys have been working hard. You know, we've been able to get after it pretty good in practice, and we're very excited about this opportunity.
All right, we will now open it up to the room. We've got two microphones. Christian and Roberta hold the mics. If we can flag them down, we will get questions from the media.
Hey, DJ, it's Tim Reynolds with the AP here in Miami.
Hey, Tim.
When you see Lynch, I don't know if there's, the ACC obviously has some very athletic quarterbacks, but I don't know if there's one that compares as far as all the skill sets that he brings. Can you liken him to anybody, and just how daunting is it to get ready for a guy that can obviously do a lot of different things?
You're right. You know, he's a rare player. He's got 1,700 yards rushing and 3,000 passing, and it's tough to compare him to anyone. But from the quarterbacks that we've played, I'd say he's most like probably B.J. Daniels at South Florida. You know, very athletic, a guy that can make you miss and is very, active on his feet.
Next question, if we can bring the microphone all the way in the back up the camera stand.
Lane Hurt, Seminoles.com. Coach, can you talk about the decision process of staying back and coaching FSU in this game, and why was that important for you?
Well, the last 3 years have been tremendous for me at Florida State, and I've got such great memories and worked so hard, and my players mean so much to me, and the opportunity that Coach Fisher gave me. I really wanted to finish this thing off on a high note, and I wanted to do everything I could for the program, the coaches, and the players to make sure that we finish this season, with a win and continue to do what I can throughout the rest of this week to get us there.
Coach, Ira Schofel with the Tallahassee Democrat. Could you just talk about preparing a game plan? I guess the last two, Georgia Tech, you had a real active role in preparing the game plan too, and was that different than during the course of the season? Was it a collaborative effort during the season, or could you just tell us the differences or similarities?
Well, Coach Stoops has been the defensive coordinator, obviously, for the last 3 seasons and has been the head guy in preparing the game plans for us the majority of the time. With Georgia Tech, I had a little better feel for those type of offenses. So I was in the lead that week in preparing the game plan and calling the defense. But it was an active role by all the coaches. There wasn't just one guy that was a part of any of our game plans. And, it's the same this week. It's an active role with all the coaches involved for this game plan, these preparations as well.
Coach Dieter Kurtenbach with the Sun Sentinel. I was wondering how much integration you've had with the young players in practices this week, and how that will be affected, or how much you're using the young players early on in practice, kind of getting them into the system, almost a scout team sort of stuff, and how the coaching staff changes affect that decision.
I don't understand your question.
Northern Illinois was alluding to that, and early on in practice, they'd use a lot of the young players, kind of bring them along a little bit and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it, almost get them ready for next year. They started to use it as a early spring practice. You guys do anything like that at Florida State?
Definitely we did. We had some practices early that were not designed for game plan practices. They were just skill development practices, and we made sure that our young players got a lot of reps in those early practices.
And with the coaching changes, how has that affected how you approach it?
It hasn't affected me any differently. I'm still working for Florida State, and that's been my approach, and I'm doing everything I can as a coach and as a coordinator to help this team be as successful as they can.
To your right down here in the front row.
Hey, Coach. Coley Harvey from the Orlando Sentinel. Just wanted to ask about what these last 3 weeks have been like. Obviously going up to Kentucky, being back and forth a lot, trying to get the game plan, obviously, for this bowl set up. Just walk us through what these last couple of weeks have been.
Well, I think I broke a record on airline miles, and no, it's been very busy. You know what I mean? It's been very busy. I've had a lot of responsibilities on both ends, And, there hasn't been much downtime at all. And, I'm still got a task at hand. So I'm still in that mode, that work mode. And it's been exciting, but it's also been challenging to manage two jobs. But I'm fully committed and fully focused on winning this game and doing whatever I can.
Obviously, you know what your future is, obviously. But, as far as you guys have come these last couple of years, how important is it to you personally, even though you know what your next chapter is going to look like, to end this on a winning note? I mean, not what it would mean to the program, what it would mean to Jimbo or the kids, but what it means to you personally to make sure you go out from this chapter a winner.
Well, Florida State has been a great experience for me, and it's one that I'm going to cherish forever. And I want to finish this thing off right, and that's why I'm working so hard to do that. I always looked at Florida State as a place where they weren't lucky to have me, but I was lucky to have Florida State. And that's the way I approached work every day. Coach Fisher took a chance on me. I was a young D-line coach at Rice that did a good job in an interview. So I tried to repay him every single day with my work. My players mean a tremendous amount to me. So I want to make sure that I finish this thing off for them. They bought in early to what we were doing, and they've been very successful, and they've always respected me and done exactly what I've told them to do. So I want them to know that I was going to be here till the end for them as well.
Go to your left in the second row.
Matt Hopkinson, Northern Star. Obviously, with all the attention paid to Lynch, what do you think about the rest of the NIU's offense components, from the line to the receivers and the backs?
Well, obviously they're a very good offense. They've got great numbers. They've won, all but one game. And there's, other weapons besides Jordan Lynch that we're going to have to be prepared for. They've got good speed, and their offensive line is very effective. They work well together. So, we're conscious of more than just one player for them.
A microphone here in the front row on the right.
Coach Ira Schofel with the Tallahassee Democrat again. Bjorn Warner, Coach Fisher's talked a lot about how his instincts and just feel for the game is different than a lot of football players. Could you talk about that? And is it do you still see those things that surprise you even this late in his career?
Well, Bjorn is a player that you have certain players that you can give them a certain amount of information, but they can only apply so much. So you have to be careful on who and what you give to certain players. But Bjorn's one of those players that he can take in anything you give him, you know what I mean? And he can apply it in the game. So he never ceases to amaze me on how much he can improve, and he's done that his whole career. Brandon Jenkins was the same way, and Tank Carradine's played great for me as well as his other defensive ends. But, Bjorn is one of those guys that's a student of the game and continues to improve.
All right, we are going to keep Coach up here at the table for those who want to continue with him. Anyone else who wants to go to the player room, it is now open for interviews, so you can make your way in there. While you all make your way out of the room, we'll let you know that Florida State practices today at 1:15 at Nova Southeastern. Photo and video the first 15 minutes of practice, and then interviews approximately 3:45. So we will take our next question from down here in the front on your right.
Coley Harvey again from the Orlando Sentinel. Coach, you guys have obviously had a lot of change there at the defensive end positions this season with the injuries to Brandon and Tank. But just what's the resiliency of those guys been like, especially with Mario coming in and having a chance to play throughout the year?
Well, they're a very tight group. They train together in the summer. They meet together even when I'm not with them. They always had the approach that they were going to be the best in the country. That was always their approach and their mentality and everything they did. So when we lost a player, it was the next man up mentality, and the younger players like Mario that have stepped up, he takes on that responsibility.
We'll stay on the inside aisle.
Coach Jeter Kurtenbach with the Sun Sentinel again. You'll have to excuse my ignorance here. When you mentioned both the Kentucky and obviously the capacity you're in currently, balancing the two, can you go into more detail in that? Are you doing anything for Kentucky right now, or are you solely in a Florida State capacity and keeping it in the back of your mind?
Well, fortunately for me, from a focus standpoint, this is the dead period in recruiting. So there aren't a lot of recruiting responsibilities that I can do right now. So I've been completely focused on preparing Florida State for the Orange Bowl, and that's where all my time has been.
Before
Before the dead period, I was mainly committed to recruiting for Kentucky. But, so was the Florida State staff at that time. They were committed for recruiting for Florida State. And then the practice preparations started just about when the dead period started.
We'll go down to the front row on the right.
Coach, with Mario Edwards, you just talked about Mario and the way he stepped up in the Georgia Tech game. What do you see for him? You won't be coaching him, but just how was his progress this season, and what do you expect from him going down the line?
His progress has been tremendous. Fortunately for him, he came in and was behind 3 of the best defensive ends in the country through training camp. So he was able to learn from those guys and see how those guys operate. And I think that's made him a better player. He's extremely talented, maybe more talented than all of them, and I think he's got a very bright future at Florida State.
Any other questions for Coach Eliot? We'll stay right here on the right in the front row.
Another question about the ends. You obviously had a big hand in not only bringing some of those guys to Florida State, but also sustaining them and maintaining them when they got there. What is it going to take for FSU going forward to get those kinds of DNs to continue to come to Florida State and continue to produce?
Well, fortunately for me, in recruiting some of those defensive ends, Florida State has a rich history in defensive end play. The program, funny thing that you may ask that. So when we led the country in sacks a couple years ago, somebody asked me if I broke a school record, and I said that's harder than leading the country in sacks. You know what I mean? There's so many great players that have played here, and you always have that to sell at Florida State.
Any other questions? All right, Coach Eliot, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. The next Discover Orangeville press conference here will be Monday morning with both head coaches. Thank you.
Thank you.